Did either of them speak to you in the run-up to this dive? Did they talk of any concerns that they might have had?
Absolutely.
Hi guys, another video about the Titan Oceangate disaster. Many of you have been wondering, what about these passengers? Why did they go inside and why did they do it? Were they scared? Did they have concerns? Didn't they hear about the bad news about it, the lawsuit, the safety concerns, etc., yada, yada, yada. And now a friend of two of the Titan passengers that died in the submersible did give an interview, and they said they did have concerns before the trip. The guy's name is Victor Vescovo. He's an undersea explorer, and he was friends with two Titan passengers, and he says they both expressed concerns before the trip. He was friends with the British billionaire Hamish Harding and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and he told Sky News that the two passengers asked for his opinion on whether they should go.
Did either of them speak to you in the run-up to this dive? Did they talk of any concerns that they might have had?
Absolutely. There was a common point of discussion within the community about the design risks of the submersible that they were going on, and they asked my opinion, and I said that I would not get in that submersible. And I think PH was part of their organization to try and do his best to try and mitigate some of the safety concerns, because he was the most experienced person in diving the Titanic, maybe in history. And Hamish, I think, just really desired to go see the Titanic. And there had been many successful dives on Titanic with Oceangate, and maybe he thought that it was worthy of the risk and that it was safe enough. But we all in the community had concerns, and unfortunately those proved out to be true.
How concerned were you that something was going to go wrong here, and what do you think it was that happened?
It was widely discussed in the submersible community that this design was so unusual, being a cylinder with different materials. It broke many conventions and safety precautions to have spherical pressure vessels made of metal. And so therefore there was a lot of concern that there could be a potential for failure over time. And it's just very unfortunate that's what we believe happened, that over repeated dives, which it made, that it eventually imploded.
Should Titan have been in the water?
As an experimental vehicle, we're always trying to push the boundaries of technology to make it more affordable and more accessible for scientists. But in this case, paying passengers to the Titanic on a submersible that was probably not fully tested was probably unwise.
So it's not how we thought before, that Stockton Rush just, talked them into it and tried to hide all the problems. I mean, he might have tried that, but people did do research and they were aware of the potential construction flaws, the potential risk and everything, and they did decide to do it. So I don't want to go into anything like that, well, then it's their own fault that they died or something like this. It's a very sad and tragic event. And it seems, at least these two passengers, but as you said, the community talked about it, they did evaluate the risk. And what I think is Stockton Rush was charismatic, and he probably talked about the risks to these people. And he probably said, well, as he said in one interview, I mean, if you're scared to die, don't get out of bed. You can hit, like we often say, well, you can hit by a brick falling off the roof, so don't be scared to whatever, go on a plane, drive your car. Then Mr. Vescovo pointed out how rare fatalities in commercial submersible operations are. And he said this was a different submersible and a different team who pushed the boundaries of safety too far.
There are a lot of people that are wondering why this is something that people are doing for tourism. It's also used for research, the submersibles that are being used. Why do we need to go to the depths of the ocean in this way?
Well, the oceans constitute 70% of our planet, and of those oceans, 80% are still unexplored. So half of the world is still completely unexplored. And yet there's all these concerns about climate change and how does the world work? We still don't understand many of the mechanisms of our world, and that can only be ascertained by doing more marine research, and it's chronically underfunded. So having people pay to go to these places actually helps marine research.
So that feeds the ability to do the research that you need to do to explore.
Absolutely.
Victor, you knew two of the men on board. What was it inside of them that pushed them to try to reach the edges of the world, and what will you remember most about them?
I think what pushes anyone that goes deep into the ocean or to the tops of any mountains is a great curiosity about the world and wanting to experience it directly. So P.H. Nargeolet, a French commander in the Navy, he was very passionate about the Titanic, made over 30 dives there, and I think he wanted to share that with so many people. And then my friend Hamish Harding, who I went to the bottom of the ocean with and into space with, was just someone that just loved adventure and was, again, trying to experience the world as much as he could in one lifetime. And that's becoming more possible for people as there's more affluence in the world. We will see more of this, people wanting to explore.
Does this give you pause about the next time you might try to explore?
No, not at all, because for 35 years, there's never been a fatality or even serious injury using submersibles to explore, as long as they abided by pretty universal conventions of how they should be built and operated. So we functioned for 4 years diving all over the world in the deepest ocean trenches with no major issues. It can be done, and it can be done safely, but it needs to be done correctly.
And you believe it can be done with tourists?
I believe that yes, with properly classified and operated submersibles, absolutely. I've had 2 heads of state in my submarine down to the very bottom of the ocean or other places. So it can be done. It just needs to be done like many things in life, like air travel or mountain climbing. It can be done safely, or it can be done in a way that's actually not safe.
Not only that, Stockton Rush said safety is basically overrated.
At some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed.
Vescovo also said the absence of fatalities is because those that operate in this sphere have adhered to extremely strict safety protocols and standards and testing, and we religiously follow. And that is something that Oceangate has not done. They said it's an experimental submersible, has not been tested by any official authority, and you had to sign a waiver that you acknowledge that. So then he talks about the Titan again. He says, but this was a different submersible and a different team, and I think they thought they were advancing the state of the art and doing some interesting things. But I think they pushed the boundaries of safety too far, and that's been evidenced by what happened. Yes, and there were so many warnings. If you watched my last video, they lost communications on almost every trip, and then they were down there for hours, not knowing where they are, where to go. You know, I've done a lot of research about the Mir submersibles that also took James Cameron to the Titanic when he was filming the movie Titanic. So these submersibles have been used since the 80s, operated by a Russian team. And what they had 2 submersibles so that they would have one that could rescue the other one, because things did happen at the Titanic. One once got stuck in the Titanic's propeller, and another time they got stuck in one of the cables that came from the Titanic, like phone cables and stuff like this. Watch my other video about this, it's quite interesting. So in one case, they used the second submersible to come down there and help them to get loose so that they would be able to get to the surface again. The Titan did not have that, nothing. The ship on the surface, the Polar Prince, did not even have a distress beacon. So when I saw this interview, what is my conclusion? So it seems people were well informed about the trip. They knew about the risks and about the dangers. They were not only getting their information from Stockton Rush, which is important to me, because Stockton Rush was trying to, yeah, come on, it's, safety, it's overrated. And I'm proud that my hull is something different than anybody else would use, but I think it's safe. They did reach out to a community of experts, and they did receive the warnings. And what I don't understand, if they reached out to that guy and asked him, should we go? And he said, no, you shouldn't. They did go instead, and they were well aware that they would risk their life. I mean, yeah, it's like if you jump out of a plane with a parachute, there is the risk that it won't open, right? And there's nobody that can help you usually. So yeah, we are taking these risks, and I guess we're somehow programmed to explore and take risks. So I don't know what to say. Just, guys, don't say, well, then they knew it was their own fault. It's still very tragic, because, you know, what they couldn't evaluate is that Stockton Rush just covered up stuff. There's been reports by passengers that on previous dives, they heard all the crackling of the hull. So to me, it seems eventually, if you already hear that, the hull might crack. You know, did they do tests after each dives? Did they x-ray the hull for damages like they do with, I think they do this with airplanes when they expect them after certain periods of times. So we don't know that. We have to see what comes out in the coming weeks and months. But I thought that this is something interesting that I should let you guys know. So guys, if you're interested in the Titan Oceangate story and want to see more detailed videos about this, check out my playlist. The link is in the description. Check out my channel. There's lots of other stuff. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Subscribe and click the notification bell. Leave me a like. I would love that. And I hope to see you very, very soon in my next video. Have an awesome day, night, wherever you are. Bye-bye.